River City Ransom is a co-op beat-em-up with strong RPG elements. While I've had this game sitting in my collection for years and have known that it's quite the popular title, it wasn't until recently when I saw someone posting about it on Instagram I decided, hey, let's fire this up and give it a shot. So with the help of my woman, we fired up River City Ransom and enjoyed some of the two-player mode, and I was completely enthralled with the experience, and this has become one of my, I would say, favorite Nintendo games. I was really fascinated with the leveling up mechanics. You have a large variety of stats that you can increase. Strength, punch, kick, stamina, your health bar, tons of stats that you can boost. And the way that you boost them is by buying items. There are bookstores where you can upgrade your moveset. Stone Hands and Dragon Feet will increase your punch and kick ability so that pressing the punch button or kick button will result in a flurry of 3 fast kicks. Acro Circus is a move that allows you to do kind of a somersault jump that does damage to enemies, and there is friendly fire, so you have to take great care when playing this game with a second player not to kill each other, which does happen inadvertently all the time. There are boots and in a shoe store that can be purchased that increase your speed and agility stat. Grand Slam does something similar, but with weapons. There is an impressive array of weapons: brass knuckles, wooden swords, lead pipes, boxes, tires, rocks, chains. These can be picked up from enemies. You can take them throughout the rest of the game as long as no one knocks it out of your hand, picks it up, and runs away, which happened to me. I was carrying a lead pipe around for quite some time when one of the enemies picked up my lead pipe, realized he was about to get beat pretty severely, and he ran off with it off the screen, and there went my lead pipe that I'd carried throughout about half of the game. There is a technique called Javelin Man. My girlfriend is a big fan of this move. When you knock an enemy down and you pick them up and throw them, if you have learned the technique Javelin Man, the enemy will go flying all the way across the screen and become a projectile that can take out enemies or the other player, which happened quite a few times. When I saved up and bought the $99 boots, I noticed that just walking I was going much faster than my girlfriend, and then when sprinting I was going considerably faster. So then we did some gold farming and bought her a pair of the Texas boots, and our speed was similar. It also increases your kick attack. For the time that this game came out, this is an incredibly complex and deep system for a beat-em-up that I've never seen since. Which I've heard this game didn't sell fantastically when it came out, but in hindsight has gained popularity because of the depth and complexity. And I can see why. There is a password system, and while I like the password system that you can save your character and level up your stats and keep going through the game over and over and leveling out your guy, the password is horrendous. This is a very long password. It's got the full alphabet, uppercase and lowercase. There's a little accent mark that can be put on each of those characters, as well as 0 through 9. So there is just a very lengthy option for passwords. You just hit the start button and it brings up a menu, and you go to password and it'll show your current character layout. I would have gone mad if I was playing this before the age of smartphones where you can just take a picture, and even with the picture I managed to screw up the password every single time I try to enter it, and it takes a few attempts. But I do appreciate that you can level up your character. When you start a game, you hit start, you go into the password, you enter your character, and then you start from the beginning of the game. And you can take a character from a 2-player game and continue it, single player and vice versa. But it remembers which bosses you have beaten. In order to beat the game, you have to beat bosses in a certain order. At the bottom of the screen, there is dialogue from the characters. So as you're beating someone up, they will give you information relevant to the order and the location of the bosses that you have to fight. Again, this is something more complex than I've ever seen in a side-scrolling beat-em-up. Traditionally, the enemy is to the right, and you walk to the right, and then you beat up all the guys until you run out of guys to beat up and the credits roll. In this game, you can go all the way back to the first screen and gold farm, and I think that is very unique. Whenever you go to a new screen, it'll tell you the location, it'll tell you the name of the park, so that you know that you're indeed in the correct spot to fight Blade, which I thought was very cool. Anyone familiar with Nintendo games at this point has probably seen the quote, "barf." This is one of the things that an enemy will say when you beat them senseless. There is lots of fun dialogue, so pay attention. Sometimes, like when I was playing the game 2-player, I wasn't paying as much attention to what was being said because I was talking to my girlfriend, but there is some important stuff going on down there in the dialogue. It'll tell you who to fight next and where they're at. If you don't pay attention to the dialogue, just keep exploring the game. Eventually you'll get it. Then it culminates in you go to River City High School, and you have to fight your way to the roof, where you beat up Slick, and you rescue Cindy, who has plenty of time left over to complete her shopping. There is slowdown and flicker, which I feel happened a bit more when you were playing the game in co-op, but it was nothing too bad to stop you from enjoying the game. While the bottom halves of enemies might be invisible during some of the more frantic encounters, it's still very playable and doesn't happen enough to stop you from enjoying the game. Originally released in 1989 in Japan for the Famicom, I feel that this game has a high level of graphical polish. The chibi, super deformed style is attractive. It may not have been widely popular in the West at the time. I don't know how people would have felt about this in 1990 when it saw its North American release, but looking back at it, I think this is a very good looking game for the time it came out, and it looks like it was one of the later releases, like in 1991 or 92, but this is a very good-looking game. The music is memorable. I have found myself humming it outside of the game. I would say this is one of the more enjoyable Nintendo games I've ever played. It was way ahead of its time. It's more complex than any other beat-em-up. I would say, this is probably my favorite beat-em-up, right up there with Streets of Rage. But it has a significant level of polish and depth. I really appreciate that you can buy new moves. You can buy toys at the toy store that affect your stats. If you put the time into it, you can get way stronger than all the boss characters. And if you don't put the time into it, if you don't spend time going and buying sushi rolls and boots and teddy bears, you're going to have a way harder time. So if you do play this game, I would recommend buying one of everything and seeing what it does. And if you find an item that raises your defense stat by 3, buy a couple of them. Max that stat out, and you will get a lot of enjoyment out of this title. I sure did. Highly recommended.